Open your mind's door to J-Snip 4. Open your mind's door to J-Snip 4. American dream, relocated to Tennessee. Now he's on 10 acres, GMO free. Planting info seeds in the minds of the sheep.
Well, before I get onto this little silver update, and this is about Harvey Organ. This guy follows the paper markets, you know, especially gold and silver. I think he spoke at the hearing where Andrew Maguire was testifying, whatever it was, you know, about the silver scandal where J.P. Morgan was caught red-handed manipulating the price, and he called the CFTC to tell them twice days they would manipulate it, and he was right. Before I get into that, though, I got a guy that I work with, older guy, and he loves to hunt and stuff. I've been over to this place about 2 hours from here in Florida where he's got a little camp where a lot of people have a camp, so to speak. You buy in over there and you can go hunting and stuff. It's pretty cool. But he's always telling me how I played the Play 4 lottery and I won and this and that. And like, man, this guy wins more than anybody I have known. Even the 3 numbers, you know, the Play 3. So he'd always tell me, you know, I'll be driving, see something on a license plate or a number, and then I see it again or something, you know, and I'm like, hey, there's that number again. I'll go play it, you know. And I'll tell you, I can't tell you the number of times where he said, yeah, remember that number I told you I saw today? Yeah. Well, I played, you know, both numbers. I didn't win. And then the next day he comes in, shows me, hey, look, missed it by a day. Darn, I should have bought yesterday's tickets and then today too, because I would have won. Numerous times where he lost in that instance. So the other day I'm looking at my bank account. I see 2 charges in there for $13.90. Both from part stores. 2 different part stores. $13.90. I said, dang, there it is. That's the number. I thought to myself, which I never have this happen, but it popped into my head, man, you ought to go play that number. Play 4. So I said, well, maybe. Then I kind of forgot about it and didn't miss. I usually don't play lottery or mess with that stuff. So tonight I have a dream that we're like at Bob Evans restaurant or some little restaurant, and our bill is $13.90. $13.90. And then we're out in the middle of the ocean, like in California, my whole family and a bunch of other people. I mean, way out in the ocean. And some kind of underwater massive earthquake comes and drops the water where we are downward. And me and one of my daughters was able to swim away to shore, which I don't know how shore was so close all of a sudden, but, you know, it was my dream. And then I'm like, oh, man, how am I going to tell my daughter that her mom and 2 sisters are gone? And then I see them coming up. Oh my God, they're alive. Great, I'm so happy. So then of course we're all back on land. Everything's fine. We go to a different restaurant, Bob Evans or whatever it was, get our food again. We go up to pay, and they're like, it's $13.90. I'm like, well, I just got a receipt. The other Bob Evans that's now gone, we just paid. You know, it's the same corporation. Can we just, you know, I don't think I should have to pay again. And she's arguing with me and this and that. So there's $13.90 again. Back in the 4 site or whatever you want to call it of J-Snip 4. I'm going to go ahead and play that lottery today. I'm doing the Play 4 where I think it's called the box, where you can get any number 1390, 9130, whatever, and you still win. And I think I'm also going to pay maybe a couple $13.90 straight across, 1390, and then another one 1390. You can win a few $1,000s each if you win. I normally don't do that. I don't have time for nonsense like that. But when something's pounding me in the head like that, man, by God, I'm going to play it. And I may even play tomorrow just because I know what my buddy at work does and he misses it by a day. Maybe I'll spend $10 or something, you know what I mean, total for today and tomorrow. No big deal. So, wherever you are, maybe this applies to Florida only, but the Play 4 could be $13.90. And if you hit it, you better send me 50 cents. On to silver. Harvey Organ. Cartel manipulation of gold and silver is the ultimate treason as U.S. wealth is now flowing east. This is from Silver Doctors. The doc sat down with Harvey Organ last night. And by the way, Harvey Organ's website is Harvey Organ, O-R-G-A-N, Organ, harveyorgan.blogspot.com, which is Google's blog service for free. I check it every now and then myself to see what he has to say. But the guy from the doc, as he calls himself, from Silver Doctors, had a little conversation with him. So he sat down Wednesday for a first of several interviews regarding the recent massive cartel intervention in the gold and silver markets post the QE4 announcement, the fiscal cliff, the CFTC silver probe, and the unprecedented 20 million ounces of silver still standing for delivery in December. There is still 20 million ounces. 20 million ounces is still currently standing for delivery in December. Yes, I know it was $34, then it was $33, $32, $31, and now we're at $30. Yes, I know this. And somebody or somebodies doesn't seem to care and is still demanding delivery, which is unheard of with that type of number, 20 million ounces, after they just slaughtered the markets. They slaughtered the markets to push people out of their contracts, not to allow them to go demand delivery. Well, whoever was demanding delivery put up the rest of the money to buy out that account, so to speak, and get the full 5,000 ounces per contract in upwards of 20 million ounces. Now, I'm not going to say that I know it's one individual or one company. I have no idea. But there is together 20 million ounces thus far standing for delivery in the silver market. December is always a strong month normally. And the powers that be, knowing this, decided early on in December, as you've seen, to destroy the silver market prices. So, unfazed by this move, somebody, some entity must be out there that doesn't care and didn't fold and still said, give me the delivery, give me the goods. This is interesting. I've never seen that kind of number, especially after a slaughter of the silver prices from 34, 33, 32, 31, 30 take place. I mean, this is like a 10% move that's happened over the last few weeks. Down, So Harvey Organ stated that the end game is being played out, in his opinion, and that an Asian group has decided to take on the cartel and drain the physical silver from the COMEX. Now, I would like you to know that somewhere just over around 30 million ounces, or 34, 35 million, maybe it's 40 now, I haven't looked in a while. It's always hovered around just over 30 million ounces is what's on the COMEX. So if there's roughly 32, 33 million ounces on the COMEX right now, and again, I don't know, I haven't looked, I don't know the exact number, 20 million of it's fixing to go bye-bye. That's massive. That's huge. COMEX fixing to have a problem if this is the case. So he states that an Asian group has decided to take on the cartel and drain the physical silver from the COMEX. He states that the bullion banking cartel's suppression of the gold and silver markets is the ultimate treason against Americans, as 350 years of U.S. wealth is being drained to the east. The east of the world is who's getting it, Asia, etc., due to price suppression of gold and silver. The doc asked Harvey his thoughts on the extraordinary developments in the December delivery month for silver, which has seen the amount of longs, people betting that the market will go up, standing for delivery, actually increased as the month progressed and as the cartel raided, pushing the prices down. This is absurd for the silver market to act that way. For someone or an entity, or again, more than one entity in there saying, I don't care that the price is dropping, I'm going to continue buying out these contracts. Losing some money in doing so, I'm still going to demand the physical. This is incredible. I haven't seen anything like this ever. That has, of course, next sentence. That has never happened before. I've been watching this on an active month. Usually when what happens is the deliveries are the highest in the first 3 to 4 days in the month. Then they go down a bit as there's usually a few cash settlements. What happened in December, on December 6th, you saw the low point of 12.6 million ounces. All of a sudden, it turned around, and then you saw 13 million, 14 million, and now 19.5 million ounces of silver standing for delivery. What really bothers me, and I've been unsuccessfully trying to get an answer from the CFTC, is that every single deposit, withdrawal, and adjustment in the CNT vault is done at 3 decimal points, at basically 0.000. The COMEX is a physical market. It is strictly physical. You should see oddball numbers, not straight across 0.000. He says, I could understand 1 or 2 bars adding up to 0.000, but when I start seeing everything, I start getting suspicious. I have a strange feeling that they're settling in paper. The owners don't know it. They think they're getting the real thing. What's actually happened is that there has been a large increase in the number of investors wishing to get their silver out of a registered COMEX vault. They're asking for silver, but they're asking that it's not stored in a COMEX vault, specifically HSBC or JP Morgan. In other words, they don't want it to be stored in a COMEX vault, and specifically don't store it in HSBC or JP Morgan. That's what I'm seeing in silver. The other thing you should be very mindful of, the open interest on gold has declined. It is kind of low, and it kind of tells you that many players no longer want to play the rigged game. But it's not so in silver. The open interest has remained relatively high at 140,000 or higher constantly, or maybe I meant them right consistently, the past 2 to 3 months, regardless of price. Certain people have decided to take these guys on. They know exactly what they can get out of the COMEX, and that is exactly what's going on at the silver front. So then the doc asked Harvey about the U.S. Mint's 3-week suspension. As I told you guys the other day, I covered that. 3-week suspension of producing silver eagles and whether it indicates a shortage of the silver at the Mint. He says this is a real indication of shortage. If you've had a look at the Canadian Maple Leaf sales totals, they started in 1985 with 200,000 ounces. And by the way, I think the United States Mint, we started the Silver Eagles in 1986. But, a little piece of history, I believe there. So Canadian Mint, started creating their Canadian Maple Leafs, those 1-ounce silver rounds that they have, in 1985 and created 200,000 ounces. In this year, 2012, they sold 20 million ounces. 1985, 200,000 ounces. And you know what silver prices were back then? $2, $3. All right, 200,000 ounces. You could have had silver for $2 to $3. Today, 20 million ounces sold this year. This year, they sold 20 million ounces at, let's just call it across the board, $30. $30 an ounce all year long. Let's just say that's where the average is. $2 to $3 back in the 80s. Only 200,000 sold. We're talking silver created from the mint of your country. In other words, it's not going into your cell phone. It's not silver being produced for electronics. It's not for medical equipment. It is strictly investment grade silver. They're taking that silver and parking it in a vault if they're stupid enough, or in their own safe in their own possession if they're smart enough. And only 200,000 were selling back in the 80s, and now we had 20 million in 1 year. And people still think, not many, because I don't hardly get any comments anymore like this, but some people still think this is a bubble in silver and it's going away. If that's a bubble, it hasn't popped. And as I said before, even with the fact that somewhere around 1% or less, it's like 1% of all like gold and silver and stuff is, in other words, 1% of the population, let's just call it that, of the world, less than 1%, actually goes and gets physical gold and silver as some type of form of whatever, investment, whatever. So how do you have a bubble? I'll ask it again. How do you have a bubble when 1% of the population is investing in it? When the housing bubble started to take off in 2004, 2005, etc., was there only 1% of the population in America, in other countries, but let's just focus on America for a minute, Was there only 1% of our population getting involved in the real estate market? How many people do you know went out and tried to buy a house, I was going to flip it, or I bought a second house and I'm going to rent it and flip it? And right? Everybody knows somebody. So that fact alone, that if you know even one person that did that or had a house, bought a second house, anything like that, there's no way it's going to equal 1%. It's going to be multiple percentage points of how many people got into that, and it's probably quite a bit. That turned into a bubble. The reason I'm telling you this is because if you think gold and silver is in a bubble, when you see where the prices really go, how high they ultimately go, then you'll realize, oh my God, that was the bubble. Can you imagine seeing $400, $500, $600 silver, 1 ounce, one little ounce, several $100s? And on top of that, with our declining value in the US dollar, that's going to mean it takes more of your US dollars to buy silver than potentially someone in Asia in the near future. Right? Maybe their currency starts to rise. So in other words, maybe it's only 300 whatever Asian dollars they decide to create or use or whatever. Let's just call it Asian dollars. And let's say it's 300 Asian dollars for an ounce of silver, but it's 600 American dollars. You live in this country, most of you anyways, you should be concerned what happens in this country. So prices will be affected in this country. And even so, 300 Asian dollars for a freaking silver ounce. And again, they have their little basket of currencies. That's why I'm just using the word loosely, Asian dollars. There's no such thing as an actual Asian dollar. But you get the point. So let me just finish reading this and that's it. So he says that asking about the 3-week suspension of Silver Eagle sales, is that a shortage or what? That is a real indication of a shortage. If you think, or excuse me, if you've had a look at the Canadian Maple Leaf sales totals, they started in 1985 with 200,000 ounces, and this year they sold 20 million ounces in Canada. My goodness. This means a lot of the Canadian silver is being exported out. The mint's making money. So the demand is there. Obviously, the U.S. mint just doesn't have the silver to make them. You can see it in the demand. The U.S. produces about 40 million ounces of silver. This means that in order for the U.S. to meet demand in all forms, they need to acquire silver from Mexico, etc. And then you have the jewelry demand, the medical, the pharmaceutical demand, the solar panel demand, etc. Only 100 million ounces of the total silver supply goes for investment. 900 million ounces goes towards industrial/medical demand, etc. There are new uses for silver every day. What these banks have done is they are eliminating the supply of silver. By suppressing it, hiding it, faking the numbers, settling in paper, etc., they are, is what he's saying, they are eliminating the real physical supply of silver because the demand is coming from the East, Asia. That's where the treason comes in. I think, this is what he says, I think that the ultimate treason is that our gold and silver are leaving our shores and heading east. Eventually, we won't have it. Just like rare earths, we won't have any. That is simply treason. And then he says, check back tomorrow for part 2 of the interview with Harvey Organ, which is actually today, but I do not see it on the Silver Doctor's website because that's straight where I went to go read this to you. There's a couple new articles, but it's not part 2 of that. So I'll look forward to reading that a little later today. And if anything new or interesting that I need to tell you about, I'll go ahead and do a second video on it. So aside from that, remember the lottery number that may or may not be anything, 1390. Take care.